What's going on, guys, and welcome to my Friday Night SmackDown review for September 18th, 2020. I am Graham Jason Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well. Pretty decent episode on Friday Night of SmackDown. Not as strong, I thought, as the show 2 weeks ago, which I would argue, as many other people would probably agree, was one of, if not the strongest SmackDown of 2020. And I know that's not saying a lot, because the show has largely sucked this year, but it seems like they've been putting more effort and to create more feuds, more characters, more intriguing storylines, so I appreciate that. Some of those storylines, on this show anyway, weren't furthered all too well. I'll get into it match by match, segment by segment in a moment, but the Alexa Bliss, Nikki Cross, Fiend stuff on this show, while it largely has interested me, the trance stuff from Alexa Bliss on this show and kind of what we saw last week was a little lame, in my opinion. The whole Otis getting sued thing by Miz and Morrison, unless it's leading to Joseph Park representing Otis, which could be comedy gold. Other than that, I just don't really care, to be quite honest with you. So we'll see where that goes. The tag team stuff has been decent. They're clearly teasing some sort of tension within the Lucha House Party, but although they beat the champions a week ago, it's just hard to care or believe in the team after they've been relegated to undercard purgatory, undercard fodder for so long now. It's really hard, honestly, to take them seriously as a threat to those tag team titles. But we'll get into it from the beginning here. So we had an episode of The Dirt Sheet, of course hosted by Miz and Morrison. And the material that I love the Miz, I love Morrison, I love the fact they're a team now in 2020. They have done absolutely nothing of note in many, many, many months. I don't think these guys have won a match on their own, 6-man tag team matches aside, since fucking April or May. It's been a long time since these two have won a match either on their own or in singles matches or as a standard 2-on-2 tag team match. These guys cannot win a match to save their lives. So they talk shit instead on the Dirt Sheet. And again, sometimes I'll enjoy their material. The last couple of months, they have not cut their best, most entertaining promos. I thought this was shit too. The whole thing about, I know they brought up Mandy Rose getting traded to Raw and whatever, but the whole thing they alluded to with, obviously Mandy moving on to Raw and maybe she's moved on from Otis, I didn't mind that. That makes sense to get under the skin of Otis. And I don't know if this is me. Listen, I wasn't pissed off by the comment. I wasn't watching SmackDown in real time, so I don't know if it was a comment that people either just didn't really care about or people didn't find too funny, whatever. But John Morrison had alluded to her sleeping around on the Raw roster and her, they're going to like a little bit more about her than just her new rose or something along those lines, Morrison said. And I'm sure that was one of the lines that they had written for them. And if it wasn't, shame on them. I just thought that was a little unnecessary, kind of just, objectifying Mandy Rose. Again, I'm not sitting here saying, oh my God, it was the worst thing they could have ever said. I mean, considering what the product used to look like a long time ago. They're just kind of making Mandy Rose out to be this object, which I realize is the point from a heel standpoint. They were supposed to say shit like that. We're supposed to hate him for it. But this notion that she's going over to Raw and sleeping with all the superstars, it's like, you maybe could have alluded to it. I mean, they didn't outright say it, obviously, but they kind of made it a little too on the nose with what they said. Had they just said Mandy moved on to Raw and she might find a new guy there, honestly, that wouldn't really be as big of a problem, in my opinion. For them to kind of say, she's going to have her way with the Raw roster. Again, I know they've made comments like that in the past here on the product. It's been a while, I feel like. We just don't really hear that about the female suit. You would never, ever hear that about Sasha Banks or a Charlotte Flair. And it's not like Mandy Rose has been with all these guys on the show. I know she's a pretty woman and whatnot, but it's not like she's had all these like an AJ Lee, for example. Like that I would almost understand just because in storyline she had a lot of, love interests from Daniel Bryan to CM Punk to Kane to among other people, John Cena. We haven't really seen that at all with Mandy Rose aside from Otis and I guess kind of Dolph Ziggler. They did say that Dolph was on Raw. I like that, but I don't know. I thought the line about her going to Raw and then having her way with the Raw locker room or something like that was a little weird. But then we had Otis come out, attack Miz, attack Morrison, left Miz in his tighty whities. You knew that was something that Vince had pitched himself that he was dying laughing about in the back. Did we really need to see that? I thought that was stupid. I know you're supposed to make the heels out to be like the butt of the joke, blah, blah, blah. I just thought that was dumb. At least Otis stood up for his woman. He stood up for himself, came out, looked like a badass, if only briefly. Miz and Morrison, though, how much does this really mean when they get their asses handed to them so often? They lose so often. How much could anyone really care? Of course, this did set up a segment later on in the show. We saw Miz and Morrison afterward backstage with, I think it was just themselves. And they said, oh, this is exactly where we wanted Otis, and now we can file the lawsuit, blah, blah, blah. So we kind of saw that later on with Otis being served a lawsuit about how I guess he shouldn't have put his hands on Miz and Morrison, and they were on a news program, so that's why he couldn't do that, blah, blah, blah. It was some dumb shit. So again, I don't really give a fuck about the whole lawsuit thing. They never really do this type of stuff properly. If it does lead to Joseph Park getting more of a prominent role on this show, then I might be more open to it. Right now, I just don't really care. The whole briefcase thing, the company's probably realizing now, oh shit, we fucked up by putting the Money in the Bank briefcase on Otis. Because why would we do that? The guy's a joke. He's not going to cash in successfully. He's barely a threat to Roman Reigns. Why would we do that? You know what I mean? So they're probably just trying to figure out a way to either get it off of him or at least give him something to do, which I appreciate. It's just not all that interesting. As for Mandy Rose on Raw, honestly, I thought this storyline, and it still might, lead to Mandy getting traded back to SmackDown in exchange for Otis giving up the Money in the Bank briefcase to Miz or Morrison or both. So, I don't think that's where it's going, though. They made it sound like they never really alluded to Mandy Rose coming back to SmackDown. They talked about her here, but when they talked about it on Raw this week, they showed a video package for Mandy Rose coming to Raw this coming Monday. So again, it might be a thing where they keep her on Raw for now and they make the most of it before they trade her back. But it seems like right now that there really isn't a plan to bring her back to SmackDown, to bring her back to the Blue brand, which is disappointing that they would split her up from Otis and not have her go after the SmackDown Women's Championship. She and Bayley, I don't think I've ever had a one-on-one match. If there was any one challenger for Bayley to face right now, it would be Mandy Rose. Because Nikki Cross and Bayley, we've seen a million times, and thankfully Alexa Bliss brought that up on Moment of Bliss on this show. Nonetheless, though, we move along here to Cesaro versus Gran Metalik. Very good match. I thought it was good while it lasted. Cesaro won. So the Lucha House Party got banned from ringside. They were on the ring apron. They were attempting to give Metalik advice, and they were kind of getting involved a little too much to the point where the referee said, hey, you guys got to go head to the back. You're not welcome here. Get out of here. You guys are kind of being an annoying distraction at ringside. So they leave. Metalik loses. I don't know if Nakamura got involved. I don't remember, but Cesaro won. So again, if you want to make the Lucha House Party out to be a threat to the tag team champions, I'm not really sure why you would do that. So I thought that was weird. I thought it was a good match. They beat the champions last week. And Metalik previously beat Shinsuke Nakamura, but he can't beat Cesaro. And it's not like, listen, I'm well past the point of saying, oh, Cesaro should be protected. He's a future world champion. We're never getting there. It's fucking 2020. They're not going to push this guy on his own. You might as well just have him fucking lose. So why they did that, I don't know. This was easily the worst part of the show coming up. So Moment of Bliss. The actual progression of the story was fine, albeit a bit disappointing, in that we didn't really see much or hear much from Alexa Bliss as to why she attacked Nikki Cross. She attacked her last week. They completely, not ignored it here because Nikki Cross eventually got to it, but you would think Nikki Cross would be pissed. Yeah, she's the number one contender. Who fucking cares? You've lost before. Who could possibly care? Alexa Bliss introduces Nikki. Now, I know it's Alexa's thing to be all like weird and then be completely normal. I get that. What was weird for me was for Alexa Bliss to betray, essentially, Nikki Cross last week, and then Nikki Cross to come out here on the show like nothing ever happened. Now, she did ask Alexa about it, but initially she's all happy, she's all excited. Oh, I'm the number one contender. Who cares? Who cares? Why wouldn't you act a little more frustrated or shocked regarding Alexa's actions? If she's supposed to be your best friend, then why wouldn't that be your first point of concern as opposed to talking about the title shot you got coming up at the pay-per-view? It's obviously important to address that, but we didn't really see or hear Bayley and Nikki interact on this show, so why should I care about the rekindling of that rivalry? You know what I mean? I thought that was just bizarre. And Sasha Banks made it very clear after this in her sit-down interview that she wants the SmackDown Women's Championship, which tells me, why would she cost Bayley the championship of the pay-per-view if she wants to be the one to beat Bayley for that belt? And it's not like she said, I'm going to take that SmackDown Women's title away from you by having someone else win it, which would also be dumb. She outright said, I want the SmackDown Women's Championship. So I don't think we're going to see an outcome, nor should we, of Sasha costing Bayley the belt at the pay-per-view. So Nikki Cross is total filler here. I just did not like the way that she came across. She botched one of her lines. That's not really her fault. It's just the way that she scripted the material. Alexa Bliss was just as bad with what she was saying, how she was saying it. Lacey Evans was easily the worst. Her material was terrible. The delivery was not good. This was not funny, entertaining, engaging, or anything. This just sucked. And it set up a match I didn't give two fucks about between Nikki Cross and Lacey Evans. Now, the whole point of it, I understand, was to make Nikki Cross out to be more an aggressive, intense person, I guess, because Lacey Evans was trying to get that mean streak out of her, and we kind of got that here. I want to see the Nikki Cross that we saw in NXT. I can't tell you how many times I've said that from many other people from NXT who come to the main roster and aren't nearly the same. It's a common occurrence. I get that. But Nikki Cross doing the whole, I'm happy to be here shit has run its fucking course. She's a very nice woman, but in terms of her, from a character standpoint, when you lose so many fucking times, it just gets annoying after a while. If she was doing that shit and she was winning a lot, then it's one thing. But when you're doing that shit and it just never really goes anywhere, and you're always a perennial loser, then why is she always so happy? I want to see that mean streak. I want to see her get aggressive. I want to see her get crazy. The same Nikki Cross that we got in NXT. We got a little bit of that here, but the match itself was absolutely nothing special. So Nikki wins. Alexa Bliss sat in on commentary. Lacey Evans afterward says Fiend. She addresses the Fiend to Alexa Bliss, and all of a sudden Alexa Bliss just loses her mind, hits Lacey Evans with a Sister Abigail, and then walks off. Now, the only good thing about this, the only redeeming part of this entire segment from Moment of Bliss to the match to the post-match aftermath was the Sister Abigail. I think Alexa Bliss hits that move better than Bray Wyatt does, and it's a great move, I think. Visually, it looks cool. Alexa Bliss, it looked brutal when she hit it on Lacey. Part of that might have been because Lacey is taller than her, and Alexa Bliss is a small woman. But, Nikki Cross is she's as tall as Alexa Bliss is, Nikki Cross is. So when she hit it on Nikki last week, it also looked great. That's the only good thing that I thought, the only thing I thought was good about this segment. Otherwise, this sucked. And I'm still intrigued by the whole Alexa Bliss Fiend thing, I am. But just the material they're giving this woman to work with is just terrible. And then Nikki Cross is the number one contender again. It just does absolutely nothing for me. So they continued on with the women with the Sasha Banks sit-down interview. So it was advertised in advance that Sasha Banks would be back on SmackDown. Not in person, thankfully. But the fact that we're even seeing Sasha at all is a fucking joke. Just save the explanation, save her side of the story for when she comes back a month from now, or 2 months from now, or in January, or whatever. Why do it now, other than just to boost ratings? And we know she's not going for the title of the pay-per-view, so then why is she here? So she gives her side of the story. What she was saying made sense. She was like, I don't need Bayley anymore, a lot like she doesn't need me, and she was all upset, and she was obviously heartbroken over her former friend's actions, and she said that she's always needed me, she's nothing without me, and then she got obliterated from behind by Bayley. I thought the attack was decent. I thought it was well done. The issue with the attack was that it wasn't vicious enough to justify Sasha being out for another month. For a month. I can't even say another month. She's only been out for 2 weeks. She got fucking killed 2 weeks ago on SmackDown. She was back here with a simple neck brace on. That was it. Just the neck brace. And Bayley didn't even really attack her here. She just attacked her from behind, left her laying. She was about to do like a concerto, put her head in the chair, and then stomp on it again. She didn't even get to do that. She got interrupted by like the producers or the security or whatever. And that was it. So, I don't know. I thought the way that Sasha Banks came across here just was not great. She sounded phony. Again, maybe it was just the material. What she was saying made sense. But the whole fake crying thing, which really honestly surprised me. Just because we see Sasha, first of all, cry so fucking much. Not recently, but like when she was a babyface, she cried all the time, which is fine. But it just makes the times where her crying isn't real, it makes it look that much more fake. Because it looked terrible here. You could tell she wasn't actually emotional. And again, it surprised me because these two have great chemistry. And I thought they would, and again, it's only one segment, but I thought they would really bring the best out of each other, really make it feel real. And it felt real, that attack 2 weeks ago. This did not feel real. This felt like a WWE written response. And maybe it was the response, the verbiage was fine in my opinion. Just her delivery in this case, unlike with the other women's segment on the show, again, sucked. I just couldn't really buy into it as being believable, but the attack from Bayley was well done. Hopefully this sets up Sasha being gone for a little while longer. And when I say a little while longer, I mean another fucking month or two. Not a week, not 2 weeks. Keep her out until like December. Which again, coming off this, I don't know if we will see, just because Bayley barely attacked her here. That was the problem with this segment. It was fine, but it absolutely could have been better. And I just don't want to see them rush into this at Hell in a Cell, which is absolutely possible. But I think, I don't know. I understand you could do one match before you get to WrestleMania. I don't have an issue with that. My issue is that their first match might be inside Hell in a Cell, which it absolutely should not be. They should have a regular match and then build the Hell in a Cell, not just give it away on match one. Also on the show, we saw AJ Styles beat Sami Zayn. The match itself was the best match of the night, which isn't saying a lot. The show was kind of light on in-ring action, but it was fine. And then AJ wins. So I thought the finish was kind of weird. So Sami attempts to... First of all, Sami's got to cut his fucking hair. The guy looks like a hobo. And I guess that's part of the gimmick. I don't know, but he looks terrible. So Sami rolls up AJ, holds the tights. Jess, the referee, the female ref... One of the female refs, I guess, because they have another one and she's been appearing on Raw lately. Jess, she catches Sami doing it. She catches him in the act. And then AJ rolls up Sami, and then he gets away with it. So why would Sami rolling up AJ catch the referee's attention, but then AJ literally does the exact same thing, and it's blatantly obvious, and she doesn't think to check if he's doing the same thing or not. Why would she check if Sami... Maybe I missed something here, but why would she check that Sami was doing it and not AJ? And it was even more obvious when AJ did it. Does Jess have a thing for AJ? I thought that was weird. The match itself, though, was good. So then afterward, we have Jeff Hardy come out, lay out both guys after what they did to him last week. He's pissed. He's still limping. I mean, that must be a pretty serious knee injury if he's still hurt like 3 weeks later. He's been hurt for like a month now. He's been hurt for quite a while. And that just surprises me because it was barely an attack. He was barely attacked by AJ Styles about a month ago. But he's still limping. Despite the fact the guy's still limping, he challenged AJ and Sami to a triple threat match at Clash of Champions for the Intercontinental Championship. But no ordinary triple threat match. He said it's going to be, and it was made pretty obvious after what he did to these two guys in this segment, a triple threat ladder match to determine the rightful, one and only, undisputed Intercontinental Champion. Now that sounds awesome. Jeff, we have not seen in a ladder match, I think since he came back, unless I'm mistaken. I don't think we've seen him in a ladder match since the ladder match that he was involved in upon his return with Matt at WrestleMania 33. AJ, I know he's been in at least one Money in the Bank ladder match. I know he was in a TLC match. Same thing with Sami. I think he's been in at least one or two. He's been in a few ladder matches on the main roster. At least like one at WrestleMania, one at Money in the Bank. My only gripe with this, and as great as this match could be, is that we've seen so many fucking ladder matches in WWE. Not even counting AEW and other promotions. But like WWE alone, this year alone, they did, I guess it wasn't really a true ladder match, but they did one at Money in the Bank. They did one at WrestleMania for the SmackDown Tag Team titles. We literally just saw one in NXT for the North American Championship. They just did one with the women in NXT back in April in a number one contenders match on TV. That was supposed to be a takeover, but they did it on TV. We saw another one in NXT UK back in January. Let me see here. They have a list of ladder matches online. It's unbelievable how many ladder matches we have seen in this company in 2020 alone. Like, they did a lot last year as well. Let me see. List of ladder matches. AEW's only done 2 to their credit. They did one earlier this year, and then they did one last year with the Young Bucks and in the Lucha Bros. But WWE has done a fuck ton. A fuck ton in literally just this year alone. So, in the last year and a half, let's do this. In the last year this isn't even counting NXT or NXT UK. This is just WWE. I know we had one at NXT UK earlier this year. I know that for a fact. But in addition to that one, they did one for the SmackDown or the NXT Tag Team titles at TakeOver 25 last June. That's one. The NXT UK one is 2. They did one with Kevin Owens and Shane McMahon on the premiere of SmackDown on Fox last October. We got one then. That was 3. 4, Io Shirai and Mia Yim in NXT before TakeOver War Games last year. They did another one in NXT the very next week with Adam Cole and Dominic Dijakovic. That's 5. 6, and I totally forgot about this one, The New Day versus The Revival for the SmackDown Tag Team titles at TLC. 7, Andrade and Rey Mysterio on Raw back in January for the United States Championship. 8, the John Morrison, Jimmy Uso, Kofi one for the tag titles at WrestleMania. 9, the women's one in NXT back in April, days later. And then 10, the one in NXT from just a few weeks ago, TakeOver 30. That's a lot of fucking ladder matches. And that's in addition to the one they did at Money in the Bank, which I guess technically wasn't a ladder match, but it still kind of counts. It's a ladder match, so of course it counts. It's a ladder match. We've had over almost a dozen ladder matches in a year and a half in WWE. They gotta slow it down. But this, though, again, has the potential to be very good. So I don't want to excuse it, but I am looking forward to it, though. Back to SmackDown. In the main event, we saw Roman Reigns and Jey Uso team up again against King Corbin and Sheamus in a Samoan Street Fight. I thought this was good, much better than what we saw last week. Last week's match was all about Jey and how Jey did a majority of the work and Roman picked up the win. This week, it was kind of the reverse, where Jey was kind of an afterthought for most of the match. Roman did a lot of the work on the outside. He was great here. Beat the shit out of Sheamus, beat the shit out of Corbin, speared Sheamus, I believe, through the barricade at ringside, which was cool. Maybe it was Corbin, but I thought it was Sheamus. So then, just as he's about to pick up the victory, Jey Uso swoops in, hits the splash, and picks up the win. And then, excuse me, him and Jey are celebrating, acting buddy-buddy. They initially tease tension. Roman embraces him. Jey walks off, not really realizing that Roman's actually a dick now. And then behind his back, Roman's smiling, looking at Paul yeah, I'm going to fucking kill this guy come the pay-per-view. I thought that was very well done. The match itself wasn't a 5-star classic, but from a storyline standpoint, this worked. It succeeded what it set out to do, and I liked it. So I thought it was a very good, simple, straightforward way of going off the air. Overall, I thought it was a decent show. Again, I didn't love the stuff with the women. I thought the Banks promo was not great. Not the first great babyface promo that you would probably expect from a Sasha Banks. And the Moment of Bliss shit was just terrible. Cesaro Metalik was fine. The dirt sheet stuff, I didn't love it. AJ and Sami had a good match, and I liked the main event. So I guess the bad kind of outweighed the good on this show. But it wasn't. I didn't walk away from this show. I didn't end this show thinking it was bad. I just thought it wasn't as strong as the other installments. It was just kind of there. Kind of a mediocre show. But they did announce a majority of the card for SmackDown at Clash of Champions. We already knew the Universal Championship match between Roman and Jey. We now know it's going to be Hardy, Styles, and Sami for the Intercontinental Championship and a ladder match of the pay-per-view. And we also now know, and I forgot to mention this, Gran Metalik, I forgot which 2 members of Lucha House Party, if they even announced that, the Lucha House Party vying for the SmackDown Tag Team titles against Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura at the pay-per-view. So much for the Street Profits, Nakamura-Cesaro unification title match, which we desperately need. We're getting the rematch from last week instead, which makes sense. They beat the champions. They're getting a title shot. But I am a little bummed. It doesn't look like that we're getting Nakamura-Cesaro versus the Street Profits again for both belts, just because these divisions are on fucking thin ice, and we need... I would never usually advocate for this, but we literally have any teams on either show right now, and I think only, not that the division would be miraculously fixed, but having 2 sets of tag team titles when there's so few teams on both brands is just not practical. Having 1 set of champions will not save that division. They unified them about a decade ago. Tag team wrestling was barely any more relevant than it was previously. But again, they didn't really have many teams. The same amount of teams they did a few years earlier, so that's why they did that. But we're not getting that. Overall, though, a decent show. Check it out. And thank you for checking out my review of the show right here on YouTube. Check out all my other SmackDown reviews on WrestleRant.com or right here on YouTube. You can check out the playlist down below with all my other SmackDown reviews from when SmackDown first moved to Fox almost exactly a year ago. We're quickly approaching that first 1 year mark of SmackDown on Fox. And it has not been good overall, but the last couple of weeks have given me hope that they're back on track and are determined to deliver a better product for SmackDown moving forward. Fingers crossed. That's all we can hope, That's all we can hope. But again, we'll be back next week. Ideally, we'll see, I guess, because I know usually pay-per-view weekends are tough. Usually pay-per-view weekends, I don't do a SmackDown review. I haven't done a SmackDown review for a pay-per-view weekend in a while. It's been a few months. So we'll see. But I might have that up next Saturday, my latest SmackDown review right here on the channel. Be sure to like this video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. Have a great one, guys. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.